come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning. And you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. It's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello. Who's gonna say it first?
And hi, Lucy, first person here. I love you.
Hello, everyone.
There
She is, yes.
And her dog Boogers is probably watching too. Boogers loves us. He's kind of picky when it comes to voices, but sometimes when Jenna leaves the home, she plays my shows so that Boogs can listen to my voice because he likes it. And I believe he likes both of yours as well.
All right. Well, this is a dog with tremendously good taste then.
Boogers! I digress. So how you doing, peeps?
Oh,
it's
you
a
know.
Lovely Monday. Andrew,
Yeah.
I know you're not feeling too hot, so you may kind of head out early, but I hope you can stick it out with us. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It's not as fun when all three of us aren't here. It's like we really are
Squad.
I don't want to say the three musketeers, but we are the three puzzle pieces. Even though that sounds very sexual.
The triangle, the puzzle triangle.
Yes.
Definitely
that sounds good. I'll take
sexual,
it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Monday's show, last Monday, if you guys have not seen it, I think that was the most fun I've ever had in 5 years of doing a show.
It was pretty fun.
So my cheeks hurt from laughing so fucking hard.
I was just listening to it today.
I just laughed all night. It was amazing. And I did move it to Rockfin only because it got a little dirty. So, we know YouTube are a bunch of prudes. So
yeah, you know what? I'm gonna try it on my YouTube, and if they take it down, it is what it is.
Then we can talk about how they took that down, and it'll get even more exposure. So
there you go. Yeah, that's true. I like the way you think. Always thinking ahead.
So, Andrew, what do you have for us tonight?
Yes. So this is it's interesting, and this I think will tie in well to what Logan is going to be talking about next, right? Republicans are really talking in statewide ever since CRT sort of became front and center. Republicans have been making very wild and ideas of how education should be run, and so luckily this bill in Iowa that I'm about to show you didn't pass, but I think it's still important to talk about it because in some other states this may pass, right? Or if they try it again, maybe in a year or so, depending on how propaganda works and how they warm people up, it might pass again, right? or it might actually pass that time, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, as usual, share my screen, and we're just going to talk a little bit about what they're doing in Iowa. And then
I think it's so important as well, because there are still people who support this, whether it passes or not. So you're right. Yeah. I mean, people can very well, what about next year's legislators, and or maybe revising it or whatever? It's still absolutely worth looking into, because this shit's fucking bananas.
And the fact that it's in Iowa too, I always think of like Field of Dreams and that scene where they're trying to like burn books in the gym, and the Kevin Costner's wife, who I forget what her name is, she like stands up and completely tells everyone off. Maybe I'll play that video after this just for some comic relief, because it's it's one of those things where it's like, damn, what we need somebody in Iowa right now that can just like shut all this stuff down. But sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing.
Well, I moved there for 5 weeks to campaign for Bernard, and I tried to hold it down.
yeah, there you go. We always need someone to hold it down.
If you had stayed there, this never would have happened, Joy. But then you would have been stuck in Iowa, so I wouldn't wish that on you.
But the Field of Dreams cornfields in the stadium, they got a real stadium now. I don't know, that's nice. Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. Iowa Republican wants cameras in public school classrooms so parents can monitor teachers, similar to a body camera on a policeman. I feel like they stopped using that term in like 1990, but all right, cool.
Yeah, right.
So a Republican state lawmaker in Iowa wants nearly every classroom in his state to have cameras so that parents or guardians can monitor what their children are learning in real time. A proposal that comes amid a national effort by conservatives to use frustrations about schools as a political wedge issue. State Rep. Norlin Momsen's bill would require cameras to be installed in all public school classrooms that are not being used for special education or gym. Parents or legal guardians would be given access to live feeds, which they could access while school's in session. School districts would be required to pay to set up and maintain the cameras. Wow. And they get mad about waste of taxpayers' money. Right. Momsen told the Center Square, a news offshoot of the conservative Franklin Foundation, that teachers should welcome his legislation, arguing that the effort would showcase the great work our teachers do, while holding schools and teachers accountable. He compared the classroom surveillance to police body cameras, which law enforcement agencies across the country have increasingly adopted in the wake of high-profile police killings of Black people. Similar to a body camera on a policeman, a camera takes away the he said, she said, or he said, he had, what the hell, type argument, and lets them know, hey, we are doing a good job. It takes that argument away, Momsen told the publication. He did not immediately respond to insiders' requests for comments. So obviously, teachers' unions were not for this. Iowa State Education Association President Mike Baranuk said in a statement that the proposal was written with the intent of further insulting public education professionals and the locally elected school boards. Instead of wasting public funds on monitoring equipment, we should employ additional qualified professionals, reduce class sizes, and provide more programming that helps students acquire the skills they need. And then, they said, because it would be, and this was an interesting point that was made, because it would be nearly impossible to guarantee that a parent could only view their own student video footage, the privacy of other students in the classroom would be violated, right? House, one of the 20,000 things wrong with this. Right. House File 2177 would also punish administrators or teachers who in any way obstruct the footage, starting with a written reprimand and escalating to a fine of 5% of a teacher's weekly salary. Wow. I don't think any of the people on Wall Street that caused the housing collapse even got a punishment of 5% deduction on their salaries. But here we have, teachers who, superintendents would also be punished if they failed to comply with the bill. And so, yeah, that is essentially, that it goes on to other laws. But so, just as I was saying before, I think the positive is that this did not pass. This did not get past the committee. So this specific bill will not pass. But I think it's important that, as we know, and I think as we talked about before on this show, when it comes to state legislation, these types of bills spread pretty fast to others, and they have similar bills like this typically on the state level, right? They have a lot of infrastructure. So that is something to consider, right? Where the different forms of this will continue to come. Yeah, so there's a lot we could talk about with this. What do you think of the whole comparison they made when it came to cameras on police officers to this? Like
they deal with like guns and knives and shit like 24/7, like bodily harm, murder, suicide. Teachers, yeah, school shooting once in a while, but the fact of the matter is you don't need a camera because kids are passing notes and being douchebags in the fucking class. That is so absurd. That is the most, the biggest false equivalency that makes no sense. It is like just a way to, it's very invasive. I wouldn't be able to concentrate in school if I knew like all these parents were watching what I was doing. And not to mention the teachers, how self-conscious they would feel, because it would be like, am I saying the right thing? What if, and maybe they're a very caring teacher and they put their hand on someone's back to comfort them when they're upset, and now the parents saw it, and now, so many things come to mind about legal ramifications that could come of it, and just like tone policing things, and people would be losing their jobs left and right because of things that would be found on these cameras, when really it's just, like it's so useless and it's so unimportant. And yes, I don't have kids, so it may be easier for me to say, but it's cool when parents are actually involved with their kids to the point that their kids feel comfortable enough to go to them and be like, look, in class, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then, if you build that relationship with your kids, I understand it's not easy, but then there is that kind of trust there, and they can then, I don't think they need to observe how you take notes, how you do things, for them to understand how they should react to you. I think school can be very separate. They know your grades. They hear from your teacher. That's it. Like when you go get a job, they're not going to have report cards with your parents. That's not, that's a very separate animal. And I think it's like that for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, look, I bet some of the people that are like that wrote this bill, that are backing this bill, are some of the same motherfuckers that are talking about like hashtag save the children, right? Talking about child trafficking, talking about trying to prevent pedos, whatever. You know what I'm saying? What is the fucking pedo in the parentage of that school going to be doing but watching kids all day? This is fucked up. And this is just the first bite of the apple, right? That's what they do. They throw something out there and they're like, oh, okay, that went too far, but let's try it again. Or they just get a slightly more friendly legislature. And we're talking on a state level. And on the state level, right, Iowa's not as bad as it is, not quite as bad as it is in the South, but like there's a takeover. It's already in play. And, we're going to talk about this more in a little bit, but like Andrew said, this is just the first of what we're going to see from this. This is not going to go away. This probably came from the desk of like Alec also. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And once it gets passed in one place, that's just precedent for it to pass somewhere else. and they can pass it on the smallest level they can. Oh, just one little school board, here, and then it just keeps until it's the fucking law of the land. And they are doing this for one reason and one reason only, so that they know what is getting said to their kids by the teachers. It is not for the safety of the kids. It's not for the safety of the teachers. It's not to prevent school shootings. It is not for anything other than a tool of social control. That is it. Like, point blank, there's nothing else to it. So this is it. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And it's really bad for all the reasons that you both said. But what most worries me is just like, just the creepiness of it. It's so creepy.
Like, if this passed, let's see how quick the first teacher who says Black Lives Matter or I support trans kids, boom, they're in court. They're gonna lose their job. Like, it's fucking done. Like,
yes.
That's why that shit's there.
Yes.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I think Logan, going off of what you said about Alec, right? Like, when we think about Alec, one of the major backers of Alec is the Koch brothers, right? And Alec, their ulterior motive is to privatize everything, right? Because if you privatize everything, then, to put it more crudely, rich people can then profit off of a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that when it comes to charter schools, particularly, for-profit charter schools, how they have become just a cash cow for different investors, different people, right?
Yeah.
And so the tinfoil part of my head is thinking, what if the whole goal is to make public education so miserable for everyone involved that they completely chase everyone out of it, and therefore public education continues to get defunded? They could continue to kind of get people to then go to more private schools, and then private schools become more, powerful within places like Iowa and such. And that's sort of their ulterior motive, so that their rich friends could get rich from that. Yeah.
I think that's possible, but that also would mean more kids would be homeschooled, and homeschooled kids are like Satan because they have open minds. They actually,
True.
learn by their hippie parents and, stuff like that. And they're the most dangerous kids because they're kids who have been bullied and are, tolerant and, things like that. So I think they might fear that would actually happen. But I do see your point.
So I think that so while I hear what you're saying, I think the problem is that once they have control of, look, they already have pretty much complete control of what people know. So yes, especially in some places, right? So that one hippie kid would be 1 in a million. And since they would have even more control over the schools, it would be even less likely, right? That because it would just be one family and the one kid. Whereas if you get one hippie teacher who's teaching a bunch of kids and is kind of fighting back against the narrative, then it might spread. And I was looking just now for something I saw a couple, an hour or two ago. This is from a tweet by Amy Frogge, Frogge. Tennessee is considering opening 100 new charter schools, removing all local control of charter approvals, and giving charter schools free access to public school buildings. Last week, I shared charter's dismal performance rates. And so what you're saying is there's nothing tinfoil hat about it. That's why 45 put Betsy DeVos as the head of schools, because she doesn't believe in public schools. It is 100% an attempt to dismantle the legislative state, as they call it. And just in case anyone doesn't know, ALEC is an acronym for the American Legislation and Exchange Committee. And it is essentially a group that writes the laws for this country. Let's just keep it a buck. And what they'll do is, in fact, they've gotten caught a couple times because they politicians were not bright enough not to leave their letterhead on the bill when they brought it into the halls of Congress or whatever, the city council, wherever it was, right? They're supposed to like take the bill, put their own letterhead on it, and then submit it. And they're just that slow of mind, let's say.
Yeah, I remember watching The 13th. I believe that's what the documentary is called. It came out like 5 years ago.
The 13th Amendment? Yeah, by Ava DuVernay?
Yeah, I think that one.
Awesome.
And I'm pretty sure actually they had Alec in there. Like they talked about Alec as part of like a segment of it that he did. And they literally showed a video. It was one of the state legislatures, I forget, but literally this state legislature calls out this other person in the state legislature, be like, excuse me, I see that like there's Alec on this bill that you're saying you did. So like, which is it your bill or is it Alex? And it was just like,
yeah, totally. They just get like, that's why right wingers are always accusing anarchists of getting that Soros money, because they're literally getting bankrolled by the Koch brother. Well, thankfully only one Koch brother left, but it's like, it's whatever. It's the same.
Well, and the Koch brothers, have literally, like when you go back to the Tea Party and such too era, it's been found the Koch brothers have literally paid off people to show up to town halls, and such. So that's hilarious as well, where it's like,
AstroTurf,
AstroTurf, and then they're like, oh, you're at a BLM protest. Oh, is Soros paying you? Granted, I'm not a fan of Soros either. He's a fucking oligarch as well.
Yeah.
But is he as calculated as the Koch brothers are when it comes to that type of stuff? Not many people are as calculated as the Koch brothers.
It's true.
So
not many people have as much money. But to be fair, the one thing the Koch brothers did give us is they gave us a study which showed Medicare for all would actually help people.
Right.
The Cato Institute said that. Yeah.
It's hilarious that they tried to fund like some study to prove their point and they couldn't. It's
you just gave us a legit study from Harvard that says that it proves our case further. So thank you.
Yeah, seriously.
It's more money to prove our point.
Shows how out of touch with reality they are, and also, with what, but they don't care. That's the other thing, is that they don't care. They know what people really want. They don't care. It's just, how can they make people dumber and sicker and less happy so that they can more easily control us and more easily inflame our... Oh, and I need to say this while we're talking about like the CRT discussion. It galls me every day that when we're talking about CRT, we have been tricked into adopting the right-wing framing of it, because CRT is a very specific college level course of study. And what has happened is they have walked it over to become any discussion of the history of race. So now when people say CRT, because it was not defined, and it was intentionally not defined, right? They're like, they're teaching our kids CRT. No, they're not. They're not teaching your fucking elementary kids CRT. They're trying to teach them history. They're trying to teach them literal things that actually happened. And so now this discussion has become about not teaching kids things that actually happened. And of course, well, let's I'll just put a pin in anything else on that one.
Yeah. I did actually, so this is for another stream, but I found myself actually taking a course on edX that I later found out was funded by the Koch brothers. And
what is edX?
So edX, it's one of those platforms where you could take classes for free on different topics. And if you want like a certificate or whatever to like, give some sort of stamp behind what you took, you could pay like some money, but basically it's available for anybody just to take a class to learn about something. And I decided
to take
what
kind of courses?
It was an education policy course. And all of their coursework came from like one website called Education Next that was backed by the Hoover Institute. And And funny enough, when we were talking about charter schools versus public education, nearly everything I read was pro-charter. Jeb Bush was featured several times as an expert in education policy. That's when I kind of knew something was up.
Right.
Oh my
They have
God.
so many of these think tanks and institutes, and what do we got? We got the Gravel Institute, and that's it. You know, that's it.
Basically what we got.
That's basically it. Anywhere near the left is like, oh, it's bad. And even, you know, and the Gravel Institute has been tweeting some things that are, to me, a little troubling regarding Ukraine and Russia. But like, they're good like 9 times out of 10. So, you know, and they need to be out there. So I'm not, you know, please keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
You know, we need everybody we can get. It's an all hands on deck kind of time.
I want to quickly just play the Field of Dreams scene because I just love that scene where she just like shits on the book burners. And I think that's just kind of the energy that we need right now.
And I say smut and filth like this has no place in our schools.
Fascist. I'd like these her pain.
Mrs. Kesenick, that book you're waving about is hardly smut. It is considered by many critics to be the classic novel about the 1960s.
It's pornography.
No. The Supreme Court says it's not. And its author, Mr. Mann,
Is sick.
Terrence Mann, is a Pulitzer Prize winner. And he is widely regarded as the finest satirist of his time.
Yeah, well, I think he's a pervert. He's probably a communist, too.
Mr. Harris, the so-called novels of Terrence Mann endorse promiscuity, godlessness, the mongrelization of the races, and disrespect to high-ranking officers of the United States Army. And that is why right-thinking school boards all across the country have been banning this man's SHIT since 1969.
Excuse me, madam. Excuse me. Terrence Mann was a warm and gentle voice of reason during a time of great madness. He coined the phrase, make love, not war. While other people were chanting, burn, baby, burn, he was talking about love and peace and understanding. I cherished every one of his books, and I dearly wish he had written some more. And I think if you had experienced even a little bit of the 60s, you might feel the same way too.
I experienced the 60s.
No, I think you had 2 50s and moved right on into the 70s.
Corn and build a baseball field.
Now, there's an intelligent response.
The weirdo.
Honey, it's all right. I'll be cool. At least he is not a book burner, you Nazi cow.
Look at all the Karen hairs.
Cats and 3 cows.
Yes.
All right, Beulah, do you want to step outside? Fine. Annie. All right. I've got a better idea. Let's put it to a vote, all right? Who's for Eva Braun here? Who wants to burn books? Who wants to spit on the Constitution of the United States of America? Anybody? All right. Now, who's for the Bill of Rights? Who thinks freedom is a pretty darn good thing? Come on, let's see those hands. Who thinks that we have to stand up to the kind of censorship that they had under Stalin?
All right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So
Hell, that is the perfect segue into what I want to talk about, which is, as she accused that woman of, fascism. And folks, we're losing the battle. We're losing the forest for the trees. We are calling everything fascism that's not fascism. We're calling everything fascism, right? Somebody tells a millionaire podcaster that they don't like what they said, and if you're a fascist, right? Somebody says, that they don't want to hear someone saying something, that they want to pull their money out of something, they're a fascist. But they're ignoring the fact that this country, first of all, I say this all the time, and I mean it, and I will say it with my chest from this day until my last. America is a fascist country. It is sometimes not run by people with fascist aspirations, right? Everything about the way this country is, and it's just something to accept, right? We're not going to become a fascist country we're going to become like an overtly fascist country, right? But like right now, right? For the past every single year of the American experiment, right? If you have been a Black person or an indigenous person or a person who is against the wealthy, it has been a fascist country for you, right? The cops will show up and disappear you, or they will kill you, or just someone or something awful can happen to you. And it's getting worse. We're about to become the kind of fascism that we know of from, the guy with the tiny mustache. Like we're about to become a genuinely fascist country. And how does that happen? It doesn't happen when Spotify does something. It happens when the laws change. And first, the laws change, and they change bit by bit here and there and everywhere. But the other thing about a genuinely fascist movement is that it is backed by a group of citizens that are essentially let off the leash to do what they want in service of the aims of the fascist government. And that's also happening. And first I want to bring up, Andrew, will you bring up just the that one placard of like the terms, basically the signs of fascism. And it is important for us to define our terms. And I'm putting this out there because I want you all to be able to define the terms of what fascism actually means. And we're talking about this in a very real and very serious sense, because this is happening. And the bill that Andrew was brought up before, that's the beginning of it, right? Because what are we talking about? We're talking about massive surveillance. We're talking about definitive control of what students are learning, right? We're talking about, here we go. Now, these are the things that are considered to be fascism, like literal fascism. Powerful and continuing nationalism. Okay, well, that's just America. We don't even got to get into that one. Disdain for human rights. We don't have Medicare for all. If you are indigenous or you're showing up for Black Lives Matter, you're going to get that ass beat by the cops. We've accepted it. We know this to be true. Identification of enemies as a unifying cause. Okay, even in that scene, right, you'll notice that when did she get people's hands to shoot up? When she mentioned Stalin, when she said communism, everybody was like, oh yeah, okay, right, I don't want to be like that, right? Like, she said freedom, she said doing better things, and they were like, yeah, I do believe in that. But once she came with that enemy as the unifying cause, every hand shoots up, right? That is America. That's how America works. We have specific enemies. The communist, you can just, like, communist is like calling somebody like an asshole, right? It doesn't mean anything in America. It's just an insult because nobody even really knows what it means. It's just
it's almost calling someone treasonous too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And identification of enemies is unifying cause. Go back to 9/11 where it was Muslims, right? Or it's immigrants. It's just America. Supremacy of the military. 800 military bases around the world. 52% of every discretionary dollar this country spends goes to what? Military might, and that's it. Rampant sexism. Okay, heteropatriarchy is the law of the land. It just is. I always say, people are like, oh, like, you can't, whatever. There is no patriarchy. There's no misogyny. All right, fine. Whose fucking last name do you have, right? It's still convention for a woman to change her name to the last name of the dude, right? That's that. I mean, what is that if not sexism? Like literally, legislatively, and also culturally controlled mass media. I mean, that's why we're here right now, right? Because you've all seen what happens when you watch CNN and get brainworms. MSNBC get worse brainworms. Fox get terminal brainworms. The New York Times beating the drums of war, even though they have, they're more intelligent, factual about some science things. But when it comes to most of the things that we're going to list, they're in lockstep with the things that lead to fascism and not the things that lead to freedom, right? Obsession with national security. What are we talking about here? Religion and government intertwined. One nation under God. What do you mean?
Which was added later.
Exactly. It was just indivisible.
Money added later.
On the money as well. Added later. Exactly. The national prayer breakfast.
Oh yeah.
That Republicans and Democrats be going to. That is just a straight up. I mean, whatever. It's Christian. They're Christo-fascists. They are
on a Bible.
You just got to exactly. You got to swear.
Used to do that.
Mm-hmm. Corporate power protected. Who got rich as everybody else lost their lives and all their money over the COVID times? Who? Oh yes, the corporations. Right? All those funds that were supposed to go to small businesses ended up going to wealthy motherfuckers. Right? Corporate power is the most important thing in this country. And that should be all of this. Also, all of this should be nonpartisan. That's the other thing. We should all be against this. But because we are American, we have already been indoctrinated to the way that America is basically fascist already. Labor power suppressed. Okay. Starting with the Reagan Revolution, right? There were the union movement is crushed. And thankfully it's being rebuilt now because of, because of the conditions and people seeing things, but it's a fraction and a hollow shell of what it was before. And it's also weaker because they figured out how to co-opt unions by putting people in there at the top of these unions who are going to stay loyal to their corporate interests, right? Disdain for the intellectuals in the arts. Yeah, that goes without saying. Obsession with crime and punishment. I live in New York fucking City. We got Eric Adams as president now. He is a black Giuliani, but worse because he was literally a cop. Okay.
Did you call him president?
What? Oh, I
totally did.
Sorry.
And
I'm sorry.
trying to think
I'm sorry.
Symbolism,
let me not put that. Oh no, that's a Freudian slip if I've ever heard one.
No, don't be wishing that on us.
Oh no, I know. I do not put that evil on us. Fuck that shit. Obsession with crime and punishment, rampant cronyism and corruption. Right? Lobbying. The word lobbying is synonymous with corruption. Yeah. Right? Cronyism. Whether we're talking about Trump's kids or the Clintons' kids or Biden's kids or Bush's kids, right? Cronyism, right? We might as well have a fucking feudalist system because that's how fraudulent elections, right? And now I got, whatever, Republican, Democrat, Green. Okay. I can give you one for each of those, right? If you're a Republican, there are Democratic states, you don't have a shot, period. If you're a Green, you can't get on the fucking ballot, right? If you're a Democrat and you try to vote in the primaries for the wrong person, your vote might not get counted. You might show up and miraculously, you've been voting Democrat for years, all of a sudden you're a registered Democrat or you're not registered. And then somehow your registration comes back for the general election. And that's not conjecture. That has happened thousands of times. I know several people personally to whom that has happened. So America has already built into it all the hallmarks of fascism. And just briefly, there's a book called Hitler's American Model, which discusses how Hitler got so many of his ideas from how America is run. In fact, there were some things about America that he said were just too much. They were too much for little,
One drop rule.
A little add off, right? So let's go to the article. Pick anyone. It doesn't matter, any of the ones I sent you. Now I'm going to give you some examples of how fascism is on the rise, and it is not being discussed or called out as such. And we are talking instead about other stuff that, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't believe that everything's a distraction. Like, I like to know as many things as I can, right? I listen to like 3 hours of podcasts a day so that I can just know what's going on, right? So I get it. But there is too much, right, for us to learn. Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, right? I'm going to put this up here. Now, you're completely right. Jenna Colby says, I remember this list floating around during George W. Bush era. And here's what I'm saying is that you could put this up during any president's era because it would always apply, because it is this country's machinery. It's the oil in our engine, right? But then you get someone like 45 who is more overt and vocally down with the shits, right? Who is more in line with it. And people call him, but then the problem is people call 45 a fascist, and people were like, "Oh, you got to stop that. You got Trump derangement syndrome." No. He was a person that is more. And the good thing about him is that he was not an ideologue. He was more in it for himself. He was in it for the money, and he wasn't even, whether he's intelligent or not, I will not cast aspersions on. But he was not interested in fully using the machinery of America the way that he could have if he wanted to, right? And Democrats, conversely, they say nicer things, but they more effectively actuate some of the fascist things, right? Like how Biden is kicking up even worse immigration problems.
Yep.
He's doing much worse with immigration than 45 was, right? So you could say it under any president because that's our country, and we really got to accept that and stop being like it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. No, it's America. It's America until we make it not so. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that fascism is happening, right? Now, in that clip, that woman is saying we should burn the books, right? Let's go back to the headline right quick, and I'll read it. Now, this is from this month. This is from February of 2022. Pastor holds bonfire to burn witchcraft books like Twilight. Tennessee pastor Greg Locke claimed that the church had a constitutional right and a biblical right to burn occultic materials like Harry Potter and Twilight. So, like, it sounds silly, and people are not taking this seriously, even though when we talk about the 1940s, the 1930s, what's the first thing people bring up? Nazi book burnings. The Nazi book burnings happened years before the war and years before the Holocaust. It was the lead up. It was the run up to those events, right? And we're in that same lead up. Literally, this happened this month. A pastor burning books and people celebrating it and cheering it, right? You want to say that something is fascism? This is what I'm talking about. And listen, this is what I'm talking about when I say that it is buoyed, right? It is undergirded by citizenry. And it could be, your Proud Boys type citizenry, which we'll get to. Actually, can we go to the Portland shooting?
Oh, the other clip? Okay.
Yeah, the Portland shooting. Yeah, I mean, I can.
While you go to that, I can't help but think about how right now 1984 is trending on Twitter, and we're talking about how fascism is misused. Sometimes it's just used as "fuck you, you're a fascist." 1984 is quoted all the time as well, and I honestly think a lot of the people have not read that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's why if you guys saw the meme I made for tonight's show, it was like fascism. I do not think that means what you think it means. I see that a lot with 1984 as well, and the fact that that's trending. And I'm looking through some of the things. I'm like, you guys are just like groupthink, and it's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we go on, Andrew, do you want to add in? I just realized I have been like filibustering over here. I got a little excited.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of goes down to the whole idea of people remember terms but don't really think about what their definitions are, right? And the right wing does this all the time, where they're just without even thinking twice, anything they don't like or is socialist, right? And liberals do the same thing, where they say anything they don't like is fascist, without actually thinking about what these loaded terms are. And it's very harmful, because if you just say anything is fascist, then things that are happening, like these things that are fascist, it's not going to have the same effect, and you're going to be the person who cried wolf. And the media does this on purpose, right? I'm not putting it all on the individuals, although as individuals we need to wake up. But the media does everything they can to not even define these terms, and then you have these talking heads that just go on and just say socialism, socialism, socialism. Thank you for repealing the fair news doctrine, Reagan.
Right.
And so this is kind of what we have.
Yeah.
I think we saw that, so much when Trump was president as well. People calling him a Nazi. And, a lot of Jewish people understandably would say that is not a Nazi. That is a white supremacist. A Nazi wiped out my entire family. They had concentration camps, things like that. So people are very quick to call Trump supporters Nazis and stuff. Some of them are. But I think that also gets used, and I've seen so many Jewish people be offended by that, and I totally think that's valid.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, honestly, we don't need to call them Nazis. We just call them Americans. That's bad enough.
Right? That's a term in itself. How very American of you.
Seriously. And this is actually a great example of what you just were saying, Andrew, about the media. The reason I chose this headline and this article is not because it's a good article. It's because this is an example of the dog shit media framing that helps to aid and abet fascism. The headline is, 1 dead, 5 hurt following confrontation between armed homeowner and armed protesters in Rose City Park neighborhood. Now, that's not what the fuck happened. Okay? It is not like they worded it carefully enough so that it's not exactly a lie. Because, yes, someone showed up and started shooting protesters, and there were protesters that were armed who tried to shoot back at the person and who tried to defend the other people from getting shot, right? But this makes it sound like it was the OK Corral, like they were standing back to back, like, to turn around, take 5 paces and you know what I mean? Like, that's not what happened, right? And the media does shit like that, where it's like, a person lost their life after an interaction with cops, rather than the cop shot someone. You know what I'm saying? And that sort of thing, it's subtle, right? And if you're not paying attention, if you're not clued in, you don't notice it. But what they're doing is they're using all that passive voice. They're using like, oh, well, we don't know. And then they will hide behind the veneer of, look, we're the news. We've got to be fair and equal, right? That's not being fair and equal. That's being manipulative. That's manipulating the facts. This is what you would say if you were the prosecution, for, I mean, if you were the defense for the shooter.
And I remember, Heather Heyer, rest in power. I will never forget. There was an article that was titled "One Dead in Car Accident."
Yes.
I will never forget that.
Yes. Yes. It's shameful. But anyway, so getting, drilling down into the meat of what happened at this particular event in Portland, to me, I've been watching Portland heavy, and not like just because I'm interested in it, but because Portland is a flashpoint. Because what Portland is, it is a liberal enclave, right, in Oregon. And Oregon people think of as this like, oh, it's like a, they smoke a lot of weed and it's like a nice, lefty. Oregon was created literally as a white state, as a white homeland. Look it up yourself. Don't take my word for it. Oregon was supposed to be a white homeland. It's a place that people fled to flee the browning of America as they saw it. Portland is an oasis. And look, the great thing about cities aren't special in any way other than that when you put people together, we learn that we're similar. You can't really, it's harder to grow up hating people that you see and who have, helped you pick up your keys when you drop them, or who like held the door for you on the train or the elevator, right? Being around each other reduces the ability to have an unreasoning hatred for people. And that's what happens when you have cities, right? And that's why they hate cities so much. Because you can't suburbanize and isolate and redline people. I mean, you can redline cities too, don't get me wrong, but not the same way. Yeah, they have very, very effectively. I mean, I live in Harlem for Pete's sake. But so I want to just, if you have anything you want to add.
Somebody read the damn comment. Stop putting comments up that I can't read, damn it.
Well, I thought, so .com says headlines usually consist of passive construction, rhetorical absolution, protesters hit by bullets as if the bullet didn't come from a gun that was held by a person who was there to kill.
Damn, .com, that's a bar right there. Headlines usually consist of passive construction, rhetorical absolution. I'm 100% going to quote you on that. That is beautifully put.
It's funny. My history professor in college always said, don't use passive voice whenever you're writing papers. And so the irony is that journalists reporters always do it.
Right. Yeah. So Portland is basically, and so we know that Portland has been a major flashpoint for protests, right? The people formed up like not armed, semi-armed resistance. Like they weren't shooting back at the cops, but they figured out how to protect against the tear gas. They figured out, they got the wall of moms out there. Like they have been doing all this stuff, and it is pissing the white supremacists of Oregon off hardcore because they're like, this is our state, and we're not letting you spread your mongrelization, as homegirl in the Field of Dreams video said, right? That's what, and so when we talk about Portland, we're seeing basically what I think is going to happen to other cities in parts of the country where the state is very, very so-called red, right? But like the city has got like a diversity of people. And in Portland, we know that the Proud Boys and the cops in Portland, they're buddies, right? Cops stand down when the Proud Boys are doing their thing, beating people up, and they make arrests when people are standing up for human rights. Like, imagine that. So this situation is what I was talking about in terms of the citizenry backing up the fascist ideas that are being passed down from the top. And this person went out and just started shooting. And what was this? Why were these people protesting? For Amir Locke, somebody who was killed on a no-knock raid They went, this person was asleep in their bed. The cops show up and they shot him in his bed. And people saw fit to protest that. That is the most American thing that you're supposed to, to have. That's constitutionally protected, but it's only constitutionally protected if you have the complexion for the protection. That's it. If it's for somebody brown, if it's for somebody indigenous, if it's for women's rights, you're gonna get your ass beat by the cops. Otherwise, we didn't see nothing. We didn't see nothing.
Just to clarify, a question about this. Did the killings happen on people's lawns?
Oh, in this case?
Yeah.
So they weren't on the shooter's lawn. No, he came
because
to them.
It says homeowners. So I'm just kind of wondering what the fuck that has to do with anything.
That is that is a very good catch, Joy. That is I didn't even pick up on that part of it. Yep.
It's like they're giving them a status.
Okay, it happened on their property. That's why they were killed.
Wow. That is, you said it. You said it. Yes. They were giving him status, a homeowner, not like a disgruntled white supremacist. Which
he was protecting his property.
Yeah.
Or she, or they.
I think it was a he. But there's some she's and some theys out there doing it too. So
right.
Non-binary collective disavows all non-binary white supremacists. Y'all are stupid because they're coming for you next. Anyway, yeah. And then there was a third one as well. But you know what? I think we probably should move to the next thing. But I will just wrap up by saying, when we're talking about fascism, and when we're talking about the danger of fascism, and someone is framing the ideological slippery slope into fascism, which is like, and you'll hear this a lot, right? Especially in leftist spaces, where it's like, oh, well, if we start stopping people from being on certain platforms, then what does that lead to, right? Not considering the fact that that's already happening. The government clamps down on people all the time, and they don't clamp down on certain other people, which is why, while I am 100% against what's happening, what the Canadian government is doing to the convoy, but you will not catch me defending the convoy. Right? To me, as a Black person who supports land back and indigenous rights, I'm like, this shit's between y'all. This is one end of white supremacy against another end of white supremacy. The Canadian government is white supremacist as shit, and the people who funded the convoy are white supremacists as shit. So am I against what the government is doing? Absolutely. Am I going to shed a tear for something bad happening to the convoy? No. When we talk about free speech, I will talk about the wet sweating people, right? And all of the children that they're digging up from all of the residential schools in Canada, right? Frame things for the people who are most marginalized. Don't just start standing up for free speech when it's some, supposed trucker who's actually a business owner in a Ford F-350 that costs a whole bunch more money than any real working class person could afford. Get it, fight for the right people. And if we're going to fight against fascism, which is, as I said, already in our country's DNA, but also on the rise in a wider sense, in a legislative sense, we have to do it by protecting those of us with the least privilege, not the most. Because if you don't fight for the people on the bottom, it's just going to keep trickling down. You can't wait till it gets to you. That fucking Martin Niemöller quote, First they come for the people. It's like the internet in terms of censorship. You're worried about Joe Rogan, but you weren't worried about sex workers getting kicked off of every internet platform and warning us that they were coming for us next. Sesta Fosta, they warned us about.
Yep.
We didn't do anything. Now the Earn It Act is here. We might lose encrypted apps. We might have no way to communicate with each other that the government can't surveil. right? That is fascism. And we need to stand against it because it's coming.
Yeah.
I guess that will bring us to your topic, Joy. Unless
I can't get it out of my head, and I know you guys will think it's funny. And we were just talking about David Bowie beforehand, and the way you first said fascism when we started, all I could think was, ooh, fascism. Turn to the left, fascism, turn to the right. And I'm like, I gotta hit up Jesse Dredd, ask him, like, can we do a parody or something? Like, I just couldn't get it out of my head. But anyway, I digress.
That'd be funny.
If he does that and records it, I will make a video. I've got a makeup look already set up for it.
Oh yeah, hey. Yes.
Your backup vocals.
Hey.
Oh my god, yes. So tonight there's so much shit going on, so I had a difficult time picking something. What does that say?
Thank you for doing this.
Aw, you are welcome. Thank you for tuning in.
Fractal. Thank you, Fractal. Yeah.
So, one of the things I've been noticing a lot is people being divided, not necessarily on the left per se, but people online, and especially on, people sharing MSM, clips, things like that, about what's going on in New York. And in November of last year, they opened up the United States' first safe place to use illegal drugs, so that they would be supervised. They would have medical attention right there. They would be clean. They could go in like a private type booth. And it was just basically, if you're going to do it here because it's safer. And now other cities are wanting to do it as well. So you're hearing lots of tropes that are simply not true. You're hearing they're supplying drugs, bullshit, not true, things like that. Andrew, do you want to put up the first article? Well, actually, I have a video.
You have a video?
Yeah. It was in the article.
The CNN Health one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's a screenshot. Let me pull up the actual article then, and I can show the video.
No, I don't know. It's the very last thing I sent.
Okay.
It's from November, I believe.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yes, that free crack pipe story really made the rounds when this first came out.
That's what, like, I overheard someone saying, when I was at the doctor's office a week ago, this woman was like, they're literally handing out free crack pipes in New York City.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh my God, you are ridiculous. You're probably the same kind of person that wants all of them in jail instead of, to get treatment. This is like these, oh my God. Legalize all drugs. I'm saying it now.
Yes.
Legalize
Decriminalize.
them all.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'm having I don't know where the video is. Yeah, just send it back in
The unfortunate thing is that when that free crack pipes story came out, which is, I mean, just excellent framing by the people who put it out there like that, because there is no headline that has gone further faster than that one. And it was like wrong from the, it was wrong and manipulative from the get-go, because also, I mean, yes. In fact, I'll be the first one to say it. Like, maybe they gave out some free crack pipes at the places, so they weren't like during a respiratory pandemic using the same pipe to suck on. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's not like
people not live through the 80s when AIDS was so prevalent and people were dying left and right because they were sharing needles.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's incredible. And Andrew, did you get the link?
Yes, I have the link. It's
So
queuing
this
up now.
video actually is a pretty good summation of a few of the, lack of a better term, benefits.
City opens 2 supervised drug injection sites in hopes of reducing overdose deaths. Good evening once again. I'm Maurice Dubois.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Christine Johnson. Those overdose prevention sites are up and running in Manhattan today, allowing users to inject drugs under medical supervision.
CBS 2's Jesse Mitchell explains these are the first facilities of their kind in the nation to officially open.
3 weeks ago, I reported the city was still weighing community buy-in and the federal legality of overdose prevention sites, but the ultimate decision came down to saving lives.
People talk about people should recover, people should stop using drugs. If they then they don't get the opportunity.
Rivera is executive director of the newly formed Point NYC, a combination of 2 established service providers in Washington Heights and East Harlem. When the doors opened, dozens of users showed up to use these new booths. 3 of them almost overdosed the first day, but were saved by the facility.
I wish this was around. I grew up on the Lower East Side, and I remember in the 70s walking through Avenue B, Avenue C in different areas, walking past dead people in the street. All right, no one could deny that.
One user named China tells me her friend died of an overdose a few weeks ago. Not only does she now feel protected by this new site, she says it will also help protect neighborhood kids by providing a private place to inject and eventually smoke drugs.
Some kids walk past and be like, "Oh, mommy, look, they're smoking crack. Mom, what's that?" They stop and stare. And it's not cute. I don't think it's cute. But, you know, to each his own. I wouldn't do it. Now you don't have to do that. Now I don't have to.
The city is already facing legal challenges. In a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland today, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis objected, citing that this past January, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that it is a federal crime to open a supervised injection site or consumption room for illegal drug use. The city's overdose prevention site champion, Dr. Chinazo Cunningham, points out that more people died from overdoses in 2020 than any year in history.
It's unclear what's going to happen at the federal government. What I do know is that we are in the deadliest epidemic ever in terms of drug overdoses, and we don't have time to wait.
While the federal government decides whether to take on the case, the 2 sites in Manhattan are open for business right now, Monday through Friday, 9 to 8, 9 to 4 on the weekends. Maurice, Christine.
Absolutely fascinating, Jesse. Thank you.
Jesse, thank you.
So I think one of the most important things about that clip is that they said the very first day they were open, they saved 3 people's lives. The first day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, even if you feel like you're above people using drugs or what have you, the fact of the matter is, if they're going to do it, why is it not better that they do it as safely as possible and under the supervision of medical care if they need it? It makes a huge difference. And I'm sorry, but if I had a relative who was an addict or something, I would be supporting this, and I would feel much better about them doing this than being on the street. And like that woman said as well, you know, you walk down the street, kids see people smoking crack and stuff. Now they're not exposed to stuff like that.
Yeah.
Logan, I know you live in New York City. What do you think about this?
So first of all, this is a fantastic idea. It is proven that safe use sites. Also, let me just put this out there. Bars are safe consumption sites for alcohol. That's what it is. You know, it's a place where you have to go through someone, get the thing, and they cut you off if you've had too much of the thing. Right? If you are in trouble, someone will call someone. That is exactly what it is. Okay, so here's the thing. This was in response to the opioid crisis.
Yes.
Right? And what pisses me the fuck off and ties back into a previous conversation is that why are they saying free crack pipes? Why wasn't the headline free needles? Because motherfuckers associate crack with black people. So you say Biden's handing out free crack pipes and all of a sudden everybody's against safe consumption. Even though their fucking relatives are dying of opioids, and that's the reason that we're implementing these, and that shit didn't get implemented back in the day, right? When people were dying of AIDS, and it was supposedly viewed as a gay disease, nobody cared. Nobody cared, right? And so this is a way that even like, you know, people who lean towards being against drugs are getting played against their own interests, because a lot of these people are like, oh, well, the opioid crisis, well, that's a health epidemic, because that's how it's been framed, because it's affecting more white people, right? So this is a fantastic idea. It is necessary, right? And it is helping, it's saving lives. Like you said, the first day saves 3 people from overdosing, right? But here's the thing, and it ties back into the fascist underpinnings of this country. What are you saying when you're saying you don't want a safe consumption site? You're saying, let's say it with your chest. Drug users should die.
Yep.
That's what you're saying.
They're expendable.
That's what you're saying. If they die, no problem, no big loss. So say it with your chest. You know, say what you mean.
Thinning the herd.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Andrew?
So first off, that Nicole woman who is the congresswoman from Staten Island is very much a Karen. Right? I just think it's just very ironic how you would think all of these NIMBY people would be for safe congestion sites, because that's one way to get people who are, you know, who are substance dependent off your backyard, right? And away and in a place where you can see it, right? So that just really just shows how people have such disregard for people when it comes to human life, right? And how people have been, through this capitalistic system, people have always programmed to punch down no matter what, right? Even if you think about it for a second, it's like, how does this even affect my quality of life? Not at all. In fact, it actually can increase quality of life, because, you know, we were talking about needles before. I mean, part of the issue, and, you know, this is obvious, you know, this is obviously an issue. This is obviously a challenge in Boston as well, as you can imagine. You know, there have been needles that have been found, you know, on school property, right? That kids, when they're going out for recess, have been stepping on. What's a great solution to have that not happen? Setting up safe injection sites where it's supervised, right? And then where these people who are substance dependent can actually build relationships with professionals there. They can get literature. They can then develop trust, right? We talk all the time about motivational interviewing when it comes to helping people change their habits, right? They can get, that's one thing that then they can develop a relationship, developing a trusting relationship, and then gradually figure out a way that they can succumb to the habit, right? So it really, I feel like there really is I've not really heard any actual legitimate, you know, opponent position to it, because it's just,
yeah.
And I'm even going to take it one step further, and I'm going to say, where else can people who do use drugs get free health care? Where else can they go? They can go here, because guess what? If they're using and they're also there and they're having heart palpitations, they have their leg hurting, whatever, this is also doubling as a free clinic. There are healthcare people on staff, open to close, there to help. So I think, I really want people to keep that in mind as well. Like this is a service. It is very much a community-based service.
Absolutely. And the hours, they also they mentioned the hours, which is great that they did, but they didn't underline what that means. Like, this is not a nightclub. It's not a bar where you get to, they're not inviting you to come there and hang out all night and party. It's like, no, if you have a problem, come here during the day, do the thing, then go home and not do the thing. You got to come back tomorrow, fine, right? But it's just it's presenting a way for people to do an unsafe thing safely, and we should provide that whenever possible, right? What's the point of a society? It's not to protect each other, right? The point of society is not to make Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg wealthy beyond the dreams of humans. The point of a society is supposed to be to increase the potential for a good life for more people. But that sure ain't the way we fucking do it.
Absolutely. And I think this is a really good first step. I do, and not to be a downer, but I mean, I worry that with more and more states and cities, like Chicago is now saying they want them and stuff, do you think that there's a possibility that it will come time that all of a sudden cops are hanging out there and oops, now they're busting people? And even though it's totally should be illegal because a safe space should be just that, do we think there's going to be cameras implemented and cops hanging out up front? And, that's what I fear. How long are they going to be safe spaces?
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to field that one, Andrew?
I mean, I think I think it's definitely possible. They might have different ordinances where cops can't be in the actual site, but the cops will know where they are and they will be then taking the block, right? And hanging out in the block because they know that the drug dependent people, then when they're leaving, they know where they're going to go, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's definitely an issue. And that's why I think all of these issues are so multifaceted, where it's really several different things that need to be addressed. And I think safe injection sites are, one, but obviously dealing with the cops and, defunding, abolishing, right, are all different things to continue to think about as well when it comes to this type of stuff.
Yeah.
I can see cops, somebody leaving and kind of stumbling a little because they had just injected, and them saying, "Are you getting behind a car? What are you doing? Are you going to work? Where do you work?" And just kind of harassing, even if not allowed to arrest, just intimidating, harassing, and then they just won't want to come back, understandably.
Yep.
Logan, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say the fucked up thing is that speaking of George Orwell, they don't even need to start putting cameras. I'm sure there are cameras that are nearby to these places that they can just get the records from. Say that there's a deli, next door to the place, and it's got a camera outside. Every place has got a camera outside. All you got to do is get somebody to just be like, when I say somebody, I mean a cop, right? One of the cops goes in and says, "Hey, we're gonna need to take a look at, your video footage for some crime," and then they figure out who the people were that were going in and out that day. We are not more than half a step, basically, from any fascist fuck shit you could think of in any one of these, because all the pieces are in place. It's just waiting to kind of get instated by a complete collapse of norms, because norms are the only thing that, and again, that's the thing that people rightfully were concerned about the previous president, was an erosion of norms. because norms are the only thing really protecting the average person, right? Because like Black people know that like the laws don't protect us, but the norms do. Not really, but to at least a little bit, right? It's just not okay to do certain things. And that's also like tying it into kind of like the culture war, right? Changing norms helps to usher that in the right direction. For example, saying free crack pipes instead of saying injection sites. You don't inject crack, right? Because free needles would have been also a sensational headline. Would have been, but that would have been more related to the opioid crisis, right? So they said free crack pipes, even though I don't know that they're giving out, like I said earlier, I don't care if they are giving out free crack pipes, but like
I don't think they are anymore.
Yeah, I mean, right. It doesn't matter. It's just like the framing of things, and that's why we have to push back against framing, because framing is not a distraction. Culture and conversation is not a distraction. That becomes what happens next. It is intellectual artillery. You got to get people in here before you can get them in physical space, and that's happening in just way too many ways.
And I think leftists there's always room to grow in terms of framing, right? Framing these different things, because the right has it down pat, right? Why do they have it down pat? Because their policies aren't popular. So framing is all they've got, right? Leftists, if it's communicated well, you will actually see that policies are popular, right? Florida voted for a $15 minimum wage at the same time as voting for Trump, right? Because it was a ballot question and it was pretty clear cut as to what they were voting for.
Yes,
right? You could go down all of those examples, right? And so I think that is always a conversation to have, is how can leftists make their proposals more digestible for people and more proof for the right coming in, and I'm including Democrats when we're talking about the right, because they do the same damn thing.
Democrats are the right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just making that clear for everyone here. But
hell yeah.
The thing about the Republicans that leftists don't do, Republicans they're not divisive with each other. They're like, oh, you hate gay people, so do I. Oh, you hate abortion, so do I. Cool. Leftists are like, you're doing that wrong. Or like, you're not as left as I am. You haven't been doing this as long as
How many times have you gotten arrested?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like, you listen to that podcaster. Oh my God. Like, we equivocate and we have these litmus tests for who can call themselves left. Whereas Republicans are just like, we all hate the same fucking people, so we are one. That's it.
And I will give a yes and to that, because like completely, but I also think that the left should spend more time inflaming the divisions in the right, because the right is not unified. They just are getting to us first. And I use the example of religious fundamentalists to make this point, because it's the easiest thing for people to like grapple with in intellectually. But like, do you really think that Islamic fundamentalists and Christian fundamentalists are on the same team? Oh hell no! Oh hell no! What they're doing is they're getting rid of all of what they view as non-believers, right? People who don't believe in anything similar to what they believe in, right? That's why that was the Inquisition, right? The Inquisition, every religion, well, the Abrahamic religions, except not Judaism. But anyway, there was basically Inquisition style stuff among both Islam and in Christianity, right? They would get rid of the witches, they would get rid of the non-believers, right? And then they had the Crusades, right? And that's what's going to happen in the end. It's not that right-wingers like each other. And we should never, ever, ever confuse ourselves that they are unified. They're not unified. They just know the right direction to shoot in. And leftists, and to be like, it makes sense that leftists have more ideological differences, because we're trying to build something, right? Like we're trying to do good. We're trying to like, and it's like sometimes it's just ego, like 100%, right? But sometimes it really is like, okay, this thing you're doing is actually not good and not getting us where we need to go. And that's why I'm calling you out. So there are genuine call outs that, like, the right doesn't really do with each other, because what do they care about most? They care about power most. And what do you do to consolidate power? You get rid of people who are definitive, complete enemies first. And that's why that's why I say, and get shit for it sometimes, that I will always talk more shit about Republicans who are passing laws and Democrats when they're passing laws, right? Because the laws are the things that make the country that we're living in. The legislation is what makes the country, right? That's the thing that you can get arrested for. And until we get rid of cops, we got to worry most about what's on the books. That's just how it is, right? It's not because like I just said, Democrats are right wingers, and that's not a dig. Most people in this country are right wingers. And for me, I don't use litmus tests. I don't care if you're left. I don't care what you call yourself. I just care what you're doing. That's it. There's no point in backstage. Backstage, I'll fight with people tooth and fucking nail because we want to have the best ideas. We do want to have the best messaging. We want to do the best to get the best world. Sure. But when it comes to in public, no. As long as there's a Ted Cruz, I'm a fuck with Ted Cruz. I'm a fuck with Mitch McConnell. I'm a fuck with Dr. Assface in Florida, who might become our president because DeSantis.
Santorum, yeah.
Because they're and what they're doing right now is we should be horrified. We should be horrified. And like, the fact that we're mostly discussing what's happening in Canada and not what's happening in America is a problem of messaging, is a problem of focus. And it's like, just looking at it structurally, if you have like I think I've said what I need to say, and also we should probably wrap up because I do need to run, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for staying with us, Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sticking it out. We know you're not feeling your best, and thank you all for watching and for participating.
Yes, absolutely. We love doing this with you guys. We love your comments. What's everybody have coming up this week, Logan? What you got going on?
I'm recording an episode on politics and astrology with the amazing Jessica Lanyadoo on Wednesday that I'm really excited about. We're going to talk about a stay-home general strike being like actually a great idea because of astrological reasons. We're going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg having the same birthday and why that makes all the sense in the world, even though people are like, well, it's weird they have the same birthday. No, it's not. You don't understand astrology. There's a lot of great stuff that I'm really excited to get into. And, I'm working on some other things, but just the link that is linktree/foi.lg will take you to, all of my links.
I have the same birthday as Rihanna. Does that mean anything astrology wise or whatever?
I don't know. I haven't seen you dance.
Not good.
I can only fathom. My birthday is the day that Biggie Smalls died. Does that mean something?
I don't know if it works like that.
Andrew, what you got going on, boo?
So on Wednesday, I'm going to be on the New Left panel on the Populist Voice channel. Yeah, well, you'll be there too. But yeah, so that's what I have this week. So far. Oh, and check out. So last week, I did on the Populist Voice with Bubble. We talked about Bubble mutual aid that he's been doing in Dallas and really successful, and how it's been very impactful to a lot of people in Dallas when it comes to especially the storms that they've been dealing with there. So definitely check that out, because I think it's great to listen to people who really have been doing effective mutual aid. We talk about how important mutual aid is all the time, particularly as a substitute for electoral politics. I feel like we don't always talk about exactly what that could look like and the possibilities with that. So definitely check that out. And I think that's always something we should continue trying to do, because I think it's much better than talking about what a podcaster is saying about another podcaster that's saying about another podcaster, so yeah.
I second what Andrew said. That was a great episode. And solutions, we need more solutions.
Absolutely. Well, you guys don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe. I want to thank all of my new subscribers who on Rockfin got me to over 1,500. So thank you so much, considering I did not launch that very long ago at all. So that means a lot to me. Thank you to Indie Left, who just became a VIP patron of mine. I love you, and it means so much to me. Coming up, as you can see my thing here, we are doing our March for Medicare for All. We are doing a 3-day online forum with panels with activists, healthcare workers, all different kinds of people who have experienced this shit system we are in. We are having panels from environment and healthcare, racial disparities in healthcare, where Logan will be joining us. That we are not announcing anyone as of yet, but please save the date. Also, Thursday, I'm having Steven Donziger on, who's a fucking hero, and I am going to pee my pants. So I don't even know what to do. I'm already freaking out over it. Thank you, Marianne Williamson, for hooking us up. And Saturday, 7 p.m., I will be on Sabby Sab's Woman's Forum panel on healthcare. I will be joined with my girl, Marianne Williamson, Dr. Dooley. It's a 2-day event. Kashama Sawant, it's just insane. So I'm really looking forward to that. So Saturday, 7 p.m., we're kicking it off with the healthcare one. So yes, but please tune in Thursday. This is going to be
amazing,
epic to get to speak to one of my heroes. So thank you so much. Again, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to share. And tune in next Monday as well. Thanks, everyone. Much love.
Good night.